Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sonya, so good to have you here. Today we're talking about all things knitting. I have a finished object to show you, some works in progress, and of course some acquisitions and future plans, so I hope you enjoy. Let's talk about the finished object first. If you haven't immediately recognized, this is the Dagmar Jacket by Petite Knit. I just finished this a little while ago, fresh off the blocking mat, and I am absolutely in love. It is such a beautiful cardigan, and I feel so proud that I knit this. This is one of those knits where you wear it out and you feel like you're showing off. Oh, did you make that? Yes, I did. All the cables, beautiful. I love the diamond motif. It's just gorgeous, and I love the color. So like I said, this is a pattern by Petite Knit. I made it in the recommended yarn. I'm not even gonna try and pronounce the name because I will just butcher it so bad, but here it is on the screen. I used the same exact color, same exact yarn as she did in the sample because I really fell in love with this shade of cream. I feel like it's the perfect cream for us girlies who are cool toned. I always find that the creams lean yellow and that just washes me out, doesn't look that great. But this has a little bit of gray in it and it's very much like an oatmeal rather than a cream. And you can see there's a little bit of, you can really see here, there's a little bit of variation in it. And that is because of the undyed, I believe. So it has some just natural gray, darker fibers mixed in there. And I really love the look that that gives. I don't love a flat color usually, and so I love that this has a little bit of variation. So this pattern comes in sizes 2XS through 4XL. I made the size extra small, and that gave me, I believe, like 20 or 20, somewhere between 20 and 23 centimeters of positive ease, and I think it's pretty good. The sleeves are a lot bigger than what I'm used to. And in fact, as I was knitting it, I was a little concerned that I had the wrong stitch count. So I double, triple, quadruple checked, and I had the right stitch count. I think in the end it looks good, but I was a little worried as I was knitting it. The actual body does have a bit of positive ease as well. And I think after baby arrives, that positive ease will obviously increase. It's knit on 4.5mm needles, and a lot of it is charted. Pretty much the whole thing actually is charted. It is rated a 5 out of 5 difficulty on Petite Knit's website. But you know, I feel like if you've done cables before, or if you've knit a cardigan before, you'll do just fine, because these cables, they all kind of line up on the same rows. So, you know, you're doing this cable at the same time you're doing this cable, at the same time you're doing this cable. And all of the shaping, I guess maybe some of the short rows, can you see that? Some of the short rows do take place in the pattern, but a lot of the shaping, like around here, is in moss stitch, and all of the decreases on the sleeve are in moss stitch, and so that makes it really easy. I memorized the chart really quick, and I've never knitted a fully charted garment before this one, so I didn't even need to really look at the chart. After I'd done all the increases and got to the body, I didn't even look at the chart. So yeah, I really love it. I think it's gonna fit into my wardrobe really beautifully. It's very, very warm. Like I said, it's an Aran weight yarn, and so it's very warm. And obviously when you do cables, you have a bit of a thicker fabric. But I think with it being a cardigan, it's pretty wearable still. I did make one minor modification, and that is simply to lengthen the cuff. I have quite long arms, and after knitting the cables to the length, it felt very short, and I was not sure how much it would grow with blocking. So I knit it to the 7 centimeters of ribbing that it suggests in the pattern, and then I blocked it, and it was about here. And so I just continued knitting in the rib for another 3 centimeters, so I believe I have 10 centimeters. I think it's a pretty good length. It feels a little short sometimes, but I think it's fine. The only thing that I don't know if I love about this pattern is that the fabric did not really soften with blocking. Obviously, like I said, when you have a bunch of cables, especially these honeycomb, it gets really stiff, and you know, you have those honeycombs on the sleeves, and I was really noticing it on the sleeves. I mean, you can see how thick it is when it bends. And I was hoping that it would soften and get more drape. Not too much, but at least a little bit with blocking, but it didn't really change at all. It grew a little bit, it did soften to the touch, but the actual stiffness of the fabric remained about the same. So I think in the end though, with a knit like this, with all the cables and stuff, the stiff fabric kind of makes sense. And so I'm not worried about it too much, but I think it would be nice to not get these weird yeah. But that's a minor thing. I think only a knitter would notice. Okay, let's get into my works in progress. I have 3 to show you today, and they're all varying degrees of complete. Here is the first one. This is My Dream Cardigan by Wool & Beyond, and this is a steeked project. You can see my steeked stitches there, going all the way down the middle, and I have pretty much completed it except for the steeking, and then of course the neckline. It's a little bit hard to see, but I have completed all of the edges as well. So it has all rolled hems here. So this is the sleeve, all rolled hems. And those details are what really drew me to this pattern. So this is knit on 4mm needles. Even the hems are 4mm needles, which I'll talk more about that construction in a minute. It comes in sizes extra small to 4XL. I am knitting size small, and that gives me about 9 centimeters of positive ease, which is about what's recommended. The recommended yarn for this pattern is Knitting for Olive Merino and Soft Silk Mohair. I have knit with this combination before, and I know that I can trust it. And so I did get those 2 yarns originally. I have them here. So this is the Merino in the color Cloud. And then I got the Mohair in the color Rainy Day. I'm sure you're seeing the issue. These do not match. I wanted a color match, but I wanted a little bit of variation. So I wanted them to be like adjacent, but not a perfect match. And despite my best efforts, I got bamboozled by the product photos online. They looked way more similar on the Knitting for Olive website than they did in person. And I even went on Ravelry and found people with these yarns in their stash who posted photos of them in natural lighting, fluorescent lighting, low lighting. I looked at them all, and I still got bamboozled. And unfortunately, I cannot return this because when I went to the post office and tried to return it, they told me it's going to cost you $200 to ship it back. That's more than I paid, way more than I paid for all of this together. So yeah, we're going to keep this and we're going to find a new project for it at some point. But I knew pretty much right off the bat when I opened these that this was not going to work. So I went back on the hunt. I still like this. I was going for a light heathered gray. To be honest, I wanted Cardiff Cashmere Classic in their light gray color. Oh, someday I swear I will knit with that yarn, but it's just not in the budget. In the meantime, this color is fairly close, but it's kind of a flat color, and I like a little bit of variation. So I needed a lace weight yarn. From the get-go, I was not totally sold on using Mohair. I'm kind of having a phase where I don't want to use Mohair that much, but I don't really have anything against it. But with the Cardiff Cashmere Classic, I love that halo. It's very subtle. It's much more subtle than if you use a strand of Mohair, but it's still more present than if you were to go without Mohair. So I knew I needed something. In previous projects this year, I've used a strand of Alpaca. I tried earlier this year Isager Alpaca 1 and Alpaca 2. The Alpaca 1 is the lace weight. And so I decided I'll just go with them. They're another tried and true. I really like them. And it has a really nice halo. Can you see that? It gives a very, very subtle halo. And so I got it in their light gray. Actually, I think it's called medium gray. So I got these two to go together. And I think they're still a little bit more different than I would like, but I think it's okay. It gives a fairly nice heathered look. And so that is how I have achieved this fabric. And to be honest, I'm still comparing it to cashmere. I just need to not, because nothing's going to compare to Cardiff Cashmere Classic. It is very soft. I like the halo that it has. I don't know if you can even see. I'll try to add some footage so you can see it better. But it's okay. I think it'll do for now. Maybe someday I'll have the budget for Cardiff Cashmere Classic and I'll reknit this. Who knows? Who knows? A girl can dream. Let's talk about the construction of this. It's a very, very fun construction. So it has a saddle shoulder / contiguous construction. So here's the shoulder shaping. You do short rows to start, so you are increasing right and left on the front and the back side. So if you are going to knit this, make sure that you brush up or are familiar with increasing on the purl side. And then of course the whole thing's knit in the round because it is steeked. And so it honestly flew off my needles for that reason, and I truly had a blast. I can't wait to steek it. I think it's going to be really fun. I was talking with some friends and they were asking, aren't you scared to steek it and cut your work? And I would say I'm like 5% scared, 95% really excited, because I've never done that before and I'm super pumped. I think it's gonna go well. If you don't know what steeking is, let's talk about that. So steeking is a technique that's usually used in colorwork cardigans and even pullover sweaters for the armholes, which allows you to knit the whole thing in the round from the right side. So you're never doing any purls in color work. So what you do is you have 5 stitches in the middle. So you have 2 purls and then you have 3 knits in between. You're going to sew with a sewing machine, and it recommends a zigzag stitch so that it remains a little bit stretchy. And you sew into the 2 outer all the way down. And so you're basically locking all of those stitches in place so they can't unravel. And then you cut down that middle stitch all the way down. And then you pick up stitches like you normally would, to make the button band. And I think it's going to be really fun. So if you are interested in that process, I am vlogging the whole thing to upload in a knitting diary. So that will be coming a little bit later. So go ahead and subscribe if you don't want to miss that. Okay, let's talk about the details. This is one of the reasons that really made me fall in love with this pattern, and it is these rolled hems. So what you do is you knit, finish the body, and you cast it off, just with a classic cast off method where you knit two and then slip one over the other. And then what you do is you pick up from the wrong side. That leaves your hem, your raw edge, exposed and creates this beautiful, almost looks like a lateral braid. Gorgeous. Super easy. And it looks really complicated. And then you just have your rolled hem after that. I think after blocking, it's going to be the perfect amount of rolled like this. Gorgeous. I really quite liked that I didn't have to do any ribbing, because you'll see my next work in progress is all ribbing. So that was a nice break. So I made an accidental modification. I did not mean to, but it happened. And that is, I don't have the right stitch count in the sleeves here at the yoke. So you're supposed to eventually get to the classic raglan increases where you do every other row increase on either side of the raglan stitches as the last step in the contiguous shaping. Well, I started doing that, and then for some reason I thought I had too many stitches, like more stitches than what was recommended for my size in the sleeve. So I stopped increasing around here on the sleeve and then continued on the body until I got to the stitch count on the body. Well, I shouldn't have done that, because turned out I had too few stitches, not too many. And so I knit the whole body and came up to the sleeve and discovered I had 14 stitches. 14 stitches too few. I didn't realize, you guys, until I knit 2/3 of the sleeve. And I had to unravel it all. How silly. How silly. I will not be making that mistake again. Let this be a lesson to us all. Count your dang stitches 2, 3, 4 times, then count it again. Because, yeah, I knit basically until here on the sleeve, and then I tried it on, and I could barely get it up my arm. So I had to unravel the whole thing. But then the challenge was, obviously with the raglan shaping, contiguous shaping, you set these stitches aside. It's not like a dropped shoulder construction like this one, where you pick up stitches equally all around. Where then, if you need to increase your sleeve stitch count, you just evenly distribute the additional stitches all the way around. Well, I couldn't do that because I had already knit all the way up to here and put those stitches on hold. So the only area I had to increase my stitch count was under the arm. And you don't want to go too crazy, because you're going to have a bunch of extra fabric under the arm and it's going to look wonky. Luckily, I was able to do a combination of some very inconspicuous increases. So I did another increase. Let me show you on the side without the loose tail. Did another increase here, and then I picked up way more stitches under the underarm. I think I picked up every single stitch. And that got me to 1 stitch less than what I was supposed to have for my size in the pattern. And then it wants you to decrease a few times in this part and then knit straight. But I was already worried about the amount of positive ease that the upper arm had, so I just omitted that. I got to about here, and I didn't want it to look like a bell sleeve, so then I did, I think, 3 decrease rounds at the interval it recommends. And now here we are. I think it looks all right. I have probably 1 to 2 centimeters of positive ease around the upper arm, and I think I'm okay with that. But yeah, so stay tuned to this channel and I'll show you the steeking process. But that's my Dream Cardigan by Wool & Beyond. The next work in progress that I have for you guys is the twist loop sweater by Other Loops, and I'm having a blast with this. Like I said, it's all ribbing. So I was happy that the other one had no ribbing. But this is a 2x3 rib pattern with some beautiful, beautiful cables. It is knit on 4.5 millimeter needles with a worsted weight yarn. The recommended yarn is 3 strands held together to get a worsted weight. The ones suggested in the pattern are a sport weight, a fingering weight, plus a lace weight. And I was not about to go buy 3 separate strands in sweater quantity. I felt like that was a little overkill. And also I didn't want to use a mohair, and I knew I wanted brown. But I'm very particular about the brown that I was looking for, because I don't want one that leans red or even like a little bit purple or orange. I wanted a cool tone one that leaned a little more grayish. And I remembered that I've used this yarn, which is Knit Picks Simply Wool Worsted, before, and I absolutely loved it. And it's an undyed wool, and so just like this one, it has a little bit of variation. It gives a very beautiful, just ever so slight depth and interest. So I am pretty much done with the body. I feel like it looks a little bit comically long right now, but I know that it's only because this is all ribbing. You can see I've been stretching it out because when you block it, the ribbing will relax, and it should give me a beautiful amount of positive ease. This sweater comes in sizes from extra small to 2XL. I am knitting size small. That should give me about 15 centimeters of positive ease. However, I had to learn the same lesson a second time because my stitch count on the body is incorrect. I have 10 stitches too few on the body, and so that'll give me more like a 10 centimeter positive ease, but I think that's fine. The reason I have too few stitches on the body is because I made a modification. I made the yoke depth shorter. I didn't realize from the sample photos that the yoke depth for this pattern is really deep. If I were to knit it to pattern, it'd probably come out close to my elbow, and I just don't quite like that look. I saw that on Ravelry. Several other people made the same modification, so I felt pretty comfortable doing that. And that just meant that I have the wrong stitch count. I'm a little bit less off in my stitch count in the sleeves, but for the body, like I said, I was quite off. And so even after casting on several more for the body under the arm than what's recommended, I still have 10 stitches too few, but I think it'll look good in the end. I don't need it to be crazy oversized, and 10 centimeters is still plenty for positive ease. The other modification I made is at the neckline. So in this pattern, it has you cast on the stitches for the neckband, knit that, fold it over, sew it down, and then start the yoke from there. However, I'm not sure that I want the neckline of this pattern. It's just a simple folded neckline, but I'm thinking I might want a turtleneck or a mock neck or just a taller folded neck. I'm not really sure yet. I kind of want to finish all, if not most, of the body before I do the neckline, so I can see what it all looks like together. So I just skipped ahead in the pattern, and I cast on the amount of stitches needed to start the yoke for my size. I did one round establishing the ribbing pattern, and then I just started the short rows from there and the raglan shaping. Again, this one also flew off my needles. I think part of the reason, even though it's ribbing, and I'm an English knitter, so ribbing takes me a while, but I think part of the reason it is flying off my needles is because these little cable repeats, they almost act the same way that stripes do to give you like a checkpoint to reach. Super intuitive. I don't even need to look. After completing this one time, I don't need to look at it anymore. I can just do it from memory. Super easy. It looks way more complicated than it actually is. And then you knit a bit, just normal ribbing, and then boom, you're at your next checkpoint. Knit a little bit of normal ribbing, boom, you're at your last checkpoint. And you can decide if you want to cut it off before this last cable repeat. But I kind of wanted mine to be a little bit long, kind of a classic fit, oversized. So I went for all three. I literally have like 2 rows of the ribbing left. No, I think I have like a centimeter, so that'd be more like 4 rows, but super close. Oh yeah, how could I forget? The second I started knitting this, I lost yarn chicken. So like I said, I'm using a worsted weight yarn, and in the pattern, she does not give you any yardage recommendations for anything bigger than a sport weight yarn. And for whatever reason, I was just really struggling to calculate how much yardage I needed to convert the 3 strands of 3 different weights to 1 strand of yet another different weight. So I bought 5 skeins thinking that was enough, and almost immediately I realized that I was going to need more. So I did order more, and it has already come. So these are this skein, which one? One of these skeins is from the original dye lot that I bought and have been knitting in. And one of these skeins is from the new dye lot. But I think they're fine. It's undyed. So how much different could it really be? I already joined probably halfway through the ribbing here. I don't see a difference. I guess we'll find out when I go to do the sleeves and the neckline. But yeah, just be very careful when you're converting yarn and substituting. Buy more than you think. Buy more than you think, y'all. All right, last work in progress is a beautiful mohair lacework scarf. Oh, it looks so good. Look how stinking beautiful. It has a scalloped hem. It's got the classic feather and fan, I think that's what you call it, lace work. And it's a free pattern. It's called the Feather and Fan Scarf. It calls for 5mm needles. I am using 5.5, and I believe it calls for just 1 strand of mohair. I'm using 2 strands to make it a little more fluffy. And yes, I am using stash yarn. This one is leftover Knitting for Olive mohair in the color Snowflake. And then this is Drops Kid Silk mohair in Creme. And I knit 1 sweater in this Drops Kid Silk mohair. And I paired it with a beautiful Noro yarn. And I regret it. I don't like this mohair. It's very itchy, and I find that the fibers are very long. However, I think paired with this, it's not going to be too bad. And you know, this scarf is not exactly going to be the warmest. It's a lace scarf, but I think it's going to be so pretty. And does that override the functionality? I don't know. This project is 100% a product knit. It is not a process knit. I've never knit with just mohair before, and I have to tell you, I don't like it. I don't like it. I know some people absolutely love it, and they hype it up so much. I'm so sorry, I'm not seeing the hype. I actually am in love with the fabric of just 2 strands of mohair, but I hate the process. So this is a labor of love already. Very simple pattern. Just work back and forth. I'm probably like 25% of the way done. This is just going to be on the back burner for the next 2 months. Although it's currently -5 degrees Fahrenheit, so I definitely need a scarf like now. So maybe I should just crack down and knit on it. I don't really have much else to say on it. It's beautiful. It's just not that fun to knit for me. The lace pattern is a 4-row repeat. Very, very simple to memorize. And I think it's a pretty common lace motif, so I wonder if a lot of you have already knit this lace motif in other projects, but oh, it's gonna be gorgeous. Okay, now we are on to acquisitions, and I'm holding my first one. So if you didn't catch my first video, I am 6 months pregnant, and we're expecting a little girl, and so you know I gotta knit her something. Now, I don't think I'm gonna knit like a bunch of outfits for her to wear in her first year of life. I feel like if I knit a bunch of stuff for her to wear between 3 and 6 months, 6 and 9 months, at the very most, she's getting 3 months of wear out of it, and it might take me a month to make. And also, not to mention how messy babies are. So I am gonna knit one outfit, and this outfit is gonna be for our newborn photos right after she's born. I have my yarn here. This is Sunday by Sandnes Garn. Gorgeous. It is 100% merino wool, and it is a fingering weight yarn, and I'm planning to knit a cute little set. It has a little dress, little mittens, a little bonnet, and little booties. And I actually unintentionally bought the exact same color of yarn as a recent finished object that I knit with Isager Alpaca 1 and 2. Here are those leftovers. I mean, that's almost the exact same color. So me and baby girl are gonna be matching. How cute. And then my second acquisition is less an acquisition, more like a knitting plan. I'm gonna be using a bunch of stash yarn. Boom, I'll talk about them all in a second. To knit a little sheep stuffed animal. How stinking cute. It's gonna go in her nursery on a little shelf next to a cross stitch that my mom is making. Oh, so cute. But yeah, it's gonna use a bunch of stash yarn. So I made a little swatch. This is more so just to see that my gauge is somewhat consistent, because you need to use a combination of 2 yarns with several different combos. So the pink will be for the little nose, and then the gray will be for the face, and then the gray fades into this white boucle. So let's talk about my yarn choices. So this is where that pink is going to be used again. This is Isager Alpaca 1 and 2. I think in the color Rose. So that'll be the little nose. And then the little face will be this gray leftover drops Lima in their medium gray, I believe. I think I'm gonna have to hold it with a strand of that Alpaca 1 heather gray that I'm using for the cardigan that I showed. I should have some left over, and I don't need that much of it, just for the little face. So I think that will help me get my gauge a little better. And then there's a little bit of color pooling, but I think you really, I'm only gonna have like 2 or 3 rows of this, so I think it's gonna be okay. But I combined the Lima with some leftover knitting for Olive in Snowflake Merino. So that's those two. And then I ditched the Merino and substituted the boucle here, drops boucle in Creme. And then finally these two together. This will be like the body of the little lamb, and then this will be his little legs and a little bit of his forehead, I think, and around his ears. How cute! And I think the pattern is knit flat, which is a lifesaver. You have to seam up everything at the end, which sounds a little bit tedious, but I think it's less tedious than knitting a really small circumference in the round using double pointed needles. I kind of hate double pointed needles. So I'm very happy that I don't have to use them for this project. All right, I think that is everything. So thank you so much for joining me and listening to me just go on and on about my knitting. Hopefully you guys found it interesting and are excited for some of my future knits. I also have some plans that are not baby related, but I just haven't gotten the yarn for that yet. And I'm kind of waiting to finish some of my works in progress before I start those. But of course, I'll be bringing you along on all of these projects. I plan to include all of these projects in knitting diaries. So full-on videos dedicated to these projects later on. So stay tuned for that. And otherwise, I'd love to hear what you're working on down in the comments. And if you've ever steeked before, please give me some tips. I'm gonna go do that here soon, but maybe I'll wait until I hear from you guys of mistakes to avoid. So thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care.